Newton News is brought to you in part by the Village Bank. Your village, your bank.
This week on Newton News, students from Newton North High School strike for climate action. Students, teachers, and the public were invited to tour the newly renovated Cabot Elementary School during their open house and learn about what eating pork can do to your system. Welcome to Newton News for Wednesday, September 25th, 2019. I'm Matthew Ferris. Over 150 countries around the world went on strike for climate action. The mostly student-led strikes were to save the future by protecting the Earth's elements. Newton students held a strike by walking to City Hall and then heading to the State House to join other students from across the Commonwealth. On Friday, September 20th, people of all ages across the U.S. took place in organized strikes to demand transformative action addressing climate change. High school students from Newton gathered together and marched to Newton City Hall to join the protest of climate change. They were met with open arms from Newton residents and city councilors who stood by their cause. Student activist Dina Gorlick spoke in front of her peers and city councilors about the importance of the youth's involvement in making changes to the future.
This is our future and it's in our hands.
Coral Lynn followed Gorlick on the steps of City Hall representing Newton North's Next Gen Voices and delivered a speech on possible solutions.
When we look for solutions to mitigate climate change, we need to transform and modernize our cities for the better. We can create jobs for the Commonwealth by building sustainable infrastructure and improving public transportation.
What you have here are a bunch of city councilors who couldn't appreciate your work today more. Unbelievable what you're doing. And it is so awesome that there are so many of you here today. We adults are excited and encouraged and so supportive of what you are doing here today and every day that you're getting more and more involved in this issue.
City representatives were very proud of what the students had accomplished and encouraged the younger generation to keep it up. They then went on to discuss the changes they are planning on making.
Is create put housing in walkable village centers. And another thing we're trying to do is enhance public transportation. We need your voices when we need to tell the state, give us the money to enhance the Worcester line, those 3 stops on Washington Street. Let's get everybody on public transportation.
Newton is a community that other communities follow. They may resent us sometimes, but they still look to us for leadership. And I'm here to tell you, we're all going to talk about the wonderful things we're doing. None of us are doing enough.
This is what you can do. You can be aware, you can learn, do your job in school, and bring that information home to your families so that all of us together, because it's going to take all of us together to fight this battle, are actually making a difference and reducing those greenhouse gas emissions starting from this city.
I know you're anxious to get on to the State House, but I just want to say I'm a resource. We're a resource for you. Do not hesitate to reach out, call us, send us an email. I'd like to come to school and work on your issue with plastics and get more sustainable products in the cafeteria, okay? Thank you.
After the councilors finished their address, the students rushed to the Green Line to join more activists at Boston City Hall. Matthew Ferris, Newton News, Newton Center. It's finally done. Cabot Elementary School opened its doors and welcomed its students back this year. Staff, students, and local officials held a ribbon cutting and an open house to show off the completed project. Ethan Plotkin has the details.
From this to this. This is not the Cabot school that you remember. Now I'm new here at New TV, so let's start at the beginning. This behind me, that's where I went to elementary school. Well, with a couple of changes. The inside's different, and the outside's more than a little bit different too. On Saturday, September 21st, after decades of concern from Newtonites and Newton politicians, years of planning, and almost 24 months of construction, community members got to explore the building for the first time, and even enjoy some of the playground amenities. Principal Eric Sprung, now in his second year, was pleased with the building's reception.
Had nothing but positive reviews from the community, great reviews from the kids, and the staff are really excited about the opportunities that they're going to have. I have a biased opinion as the principal of Cabot School. I would say we have certainly the top of the line as far as the instructional spaces. Then we had to add on some extra pieces. So we added a gym, library, the cafeteria, art room. All of those things are part of a new building that got added and attached to the old building, and the two together actually fit quite nicely and have really been a great addition to this community.
And though community members look back fondly on the Cabot of old, they're more than pleased with the Cabot of new.
Well, I think that they've done a great job melding the old school and the new school and making it so that it feels like it's one school, but yet you still have the elements from the old school left over.
Many people who are walking through here today had children who went to the old Cabot School back in the day. And we remember the old coat closets and just the very charming sort of 1930s look of the school. But finally, we have a building that matches the really great education that goes on in it.
It's just a terrific, they did a terrific job. Everyone should be quite pleased and quite proud that the city can do that.
And to see it replaced with this is just fantastic. It took 30 years, but it's here finally.
I think just about everyone would agree that it was worth the wait. Important questions remain though, like, was Humpty Dumpty still around?
Yep, so Humpty Dumpty actually was a big part of the school community, and people took a lot of pride, wanted to make sure we had Humpty Dumpty. And now he proudly sits on a bench right out in front of the school and certainly oversees all the great things that are happening here.
Well, okay, that's good, but did the kids at my alma mater still know the old school song?
Cabot, we love you, Cabot, you're grand. Maybe the finest school in the land. K through 5S. Wait, no, friends and teachers, right? Wait, okay, wait. Cabot, we love you. Cabot, you're grand. Maybe the finest school in the land.
I guess that, unlike Humpty Dumpty, is still up in the air. Ethan Plotkin, Newton News, Newtonville.
The City Council voted 22-2 in favor with Councilors Auchincloss and Grossman against an increase in compensation for the City Council, the School Committee, and the Mayor. The councilor increase would jump to $15,500, up from $9,750. The School Committee would increase to $7,750, up from $4,875, and the Mayor's compensation would increase to $155,000, up from $125,000. The Mayor has until September 26 to veto or approve the increase. If approved by the Mayor, the increases will go into effect on January 1st, 2020. The last raise the City Council received was back in 1999. We have the councilor's opinion on the matter from their recent meeting.
The mayor's salary, as the committee recommended, is higher than the Blue Ribbon Commission. I think it's fair to represent our concern in the committee that we were feeling that the mayor's office deserved more. The department heads in some cases are paid more than that, and it's a position in this city of great responsibility, and the office deserves that. It's not a matter of trying to decide what any individual occupant of that office. And then finally, the tradition has always been, as much as possible, to have the school committee sort of be about 50% of the salary of the city council, and also it represents an increase to take account of inflation. So, and then one final point, there's been some concern expressed that there are collective bargaining agreements outstanding. Those collective bargaining agreements are between the mayor and the various unions. It's not a council responsibility. Our responsibility is to make a decision, if we are going to make a decision, by the deadline set by the ordinance.
It's been 20 years since the last raise. Honestly, for the last 17 years that I've been doing this job, spending about 20 to 25 hours a week doing this when I could have been making my hourly rate, the only way that I could justify this, we had young kids, and the only way I could justify it was the health insurance. Because every year I said, should I or shouldn't I? And that was one way I could justify it. So when we talk about a raise, that really, we're not talking about getting back pay like the unions do. We're not talking about retroactive pay to 20 years ago. It's really just what the pay was then with the normal increases it would be. And my concern, and actually when I was reading through some documents that David Olson sent me from 1970-something, their concern was my concern now. And that is, if we don't have a reasonable, and it's very minimal, a reasonable salary for counselors, the mayor, and school committee people, we will have only people with a lot of money and who don't need to think about compensation. So it even said it in the notes back then. They were concerned that it would only be elite people who would run for office. And I think that is the same thing now.
This is not a salary, it's a stipend. And it's a stipend that doesn't cover the sacrifice that I and Councillor Lappin and a number of other people in this room make, not just personally, but financially, in order to do this. I believe in public service. I'm fortunate that I'm able to take this kind of work on and not get paid for it. I think this might go from $2 an hour to $3 an hour if we pass this tonight. So to me, that's not pay.
I'm not going to be as articulate as my colleague from Ward 8. That was a wonderful speech. But I am also going to be consistent, and for many months now, I've been saying that I just won't support this. And it's not, frankly, based on the substance of the item, because this is a modest increase. As Councillor Baker said, it really keeps up with cost of living. For the mayor especially, frankly, it's probably low. In the private sector, someone with that level of responsibility, managing that budget, managing that staff count, would be paid much, much more. So I can appreciate all those points. I also understand how contract negotiations work. I get it. We're not the ones doing it. It's between the mayor and the teachers union and the school committee and the teachers union. However, there's also a symbolic element to this, and voters and residents do key off of what City Hall does as a monolithic entity. The Newton Public Schools are the beating heart of this city. The Newton Public educators are the beating heart of the schools. And I think for us to give ourselves a raise and to give the school committee a raise and to give the mayor a raise at a time when the teachers are falling behind their peers in the Commonwealth sends the wrong message about where education sits in the priorities of this city. And education is number one. So for that reason, I'm not going to support it. I hope it comes back to us in 2 years' time when the teachers union has a contract, and I hope I can support it then.
In case it was on anybody's mind, I did inquire with the legal department about a potential conflict of interest of us taking these votes to increase our stipend, and was assured that because the authority to establish this ordinance rests solely with the City Council, that it doesn't present a conflict of interest. We don't need to file any disclosures or anything like that. But we are totally within our rights to vote on this ordinance. Secondly, I want to thank the Blue Ribbon Commission, who did a lot of great work and certainly helped us on the Programs and Services Committee as we were going through the information. I think they learned firsthand that public services is just that. They met several times and did a lot of good work, so I applaud them on their efforts. My concerns in committee were actually at one point articulated very well by, I believe, a member of the Blue Ribbon Commission, especially with regard to the mayor's compensation. Unlike the City Council and the school committee, the mayor is required to live in the city, but also this is required to be the full-time job, and the mayor's not allowed to have other employment. So in a city like Newton, where the cost of living is high, we're actually really limiting this position to someone who's probably not relying on the salary or at least not independently relying on that salary to house their family here in Newton. And so one of my concerns was that the mayor's compensation was low. Another concern I had was that our work to bring the city council compensation or the stipend, both for school committee and city council, based on the CPI, got us almost there for today, but knowing the political nature of this question, it's probably going to be several years before we're able to revisit the topic, or the city council is able to revisit the topic. So I was concerned that we were actually putting future city councils in a difficult position, 4 or 6 years down the road, who would again be undercompensated without an ability to revisit the issue.
There is no good time to vote a raise for the city council. In my first term on the council, we had a vote similar to this one, and I voted it down because it didn't seem like the right thing to do. At the time, the city was having difficulties. But having been on the city council for 16 years, I know that there is no time to do this. There's always a problem, whether it's the teacher's contract or a downturn in the economy, whatever it is. There's no good time to vote this. The Blue Ribbon Commission did a survey of other city councils, and I was arguing that we ought to be at least at the midpoint. The midpoint was 19,000. We are not at the midpoint. We'll still be below the midpoint. So I think we're being, I'm not sure whether that's fair or not, but we are being frugal. Let's put it that way.
10 extraordinary talented children, winners of Talents of the World, rode to Carnegie Hall International Competition in Georgia, the European country that is, are traveling to the United States to perform at Carnegie Hall. Before they get there, they stopped in Newton to perform for Newton residents. On September 15th, Talents of the World brought 10 gifted children to Newton. The event, the Road to Carnegie Hall, was hosted at Newton City Hall, where patrons crowded the War Memorial Auditorium to see these young musicians perform. Olga Lishovskaya, professional soprano and director of the USA branch of Talents of the World, played a large role in making this event happen.
I did not get such an incredible chance as these kids are getting to be on one of the most prestigious stages in the world. These kids are from 10 to 18 years old. I was already in my 30s. Because usually it takes a long time to get to Carnegie. You have to practice, and already have a big career or win some amazing competitions. And so these children are very fortunate to have a chance like that.
Among the talented lineup of children on the program was Alexander Zazurashvili, the winner of The Voice Ukraine, who saw himself rise to stardom when he opened social media to see that his voice audition video had over 3 million views.
Oh, it was like, oh my God, what is this about? And I was, when I opened my Facebook and look to people that, oh my God, what is this? What is this? Everyone share my videos, and my video have already 3 million views. It was such amazing.
Matthew Ferris, Newton News, Newton Center.
Autoimmunity is on the rise around the globe, with it affecting an estimated 50 million Americans. And diet has been proposed as the risk factor, but has been largely unstudied until now. Joining me in the studio to discuss their investigation between diet and autoimmune disorders are Iosif Gerstein, a systems immunologist at Ajax Biomedical Foundation, and Dr. Leonardo Ferrara, a molecular immunologist and human genome engineer at the Department of Surgery at University of California, San Francisco. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is a very interesting topic, and one that, as I stated, hasn't been studied that much. So why did you decide to do this study?
Well, we decided to do this study because we really wanted to systematically interrogate the relationship between diet and autoimmunity. And as autoimmunity is on the rise with over 50 million cases in America, we thought that looking into the specific foods that can perhaps cause autoimmunity or cause a flare-up of symptoms would be a very much a value-add product for these patients.
And it really is the diet that you found. So how does a diet help or hurt one's molecular setup for an autoimmune disorder?
Well, this is a very interesting question. So autoimmune disease, it's the body at war with itself.
Right.
It's in your immune system somehow escaped proper schooling, and you have some T cells, which are killing immune cells, that recognize and kill your own tissues. For example, in type 1 diabetes, they'll recognize and destroy your pancreatic beta cells that make insulin. And so this system happens, the immune system sees our cells based on these IDs called epitopes. Epitopes are sequences of proteins that are inside your cells, and they are presented on the surface of the cells. And so the immune system patrols your body. It will recognize and scan those IDs. And if something is wrong, for example, if this epitope is derived from a virus or from a cancer cell, it will be killed. And in this case, the immune system sees your own epitope as something bad.
Right.
And so food also has proteins, and so these proteins will get processed by your body and become also epitopes, which in certain cases can be presented in an inflammatory context. For example, it depends on your diet. If you have a high-fat diet, high-sugar diet, processed foods, this could lead to food being presented to your immune system as something dangerous, something inflammatory.
And then your body will start attacking that or itself.
Correct.
In that regard. So what were you looking for, I guess, in foods that we eat, I guess, every day? What kind of foods were you looking for?
Well, we started out with a sample of 14 commonly consumed plants and animals. And what we did is we looked at the components of the protein. So the protein can be divided into peptides, and peptides further divided into epitopes. And so we looked at about 18,000 autoimmune-associated peptides, human autoimmune-associated peptides, and looked for overlap between those epitopes and the epitopes present in these 14 organisms. So we looked at pork, beef, lamb, as well as rice, quinoa, just a wide variety. And we were looking for outliers. We were looking for finding out, A, for which diseases, which animals contain more overlap, and also we were looking for unique overlaps.
So what was the process in order to find those unique overlaps? What process did you use to find those?
Well, so we started by really taking these 18,000 protein epitopes that have been previously implicated in autoimmune disease, and then we lined those up with the complete protein sequences of these 14 organisms. So pig, duck, quinoa, rice, etc.
Right.
And so we mapped those and we built this massive database where we can now go and cross-check each of these epitopes in animals in each specific human autoimmune disease. And we looked at over 70 of those.
And you came up with, so what was your conclusion, like at the end of all of these different?
Well, what we did is we created indices. We created the GF index, which
you've named after yourself.
Yes.
Gerstein-Ferrara
index. And what we did is we created graphs that would show which diseases have which overlaps per animal. So you can visually see which, per disease, where there is the most overlap, where is the highest risk, potentially, according to theory. And then we created one further layer, which is unique GF index, which finds which animals have most unique associations with that disease. And there we had one massive outlier, which was the pig. So the pig has roughly 700 unique epitopes that are associated with autoimmune disease. it maxed out our scale.
Do you happen to know why the pig was the one? Is it because it just eats anything? Do you have any idea as to how that came about, pig being the #1 cause?
It's a very good question. I guess one could say like genetic similarity definitely plays a role. So a pig is much closer to us than rice would be. And so this index for a pig is much higher than it would be for rice. But it's more than that. Like, you could not predict, because as I also just said, there's like unique epitopes. So if you look at like total epitopes in like pig or beef, they're similar. But if you look at unique epitopes, there's almost 1,000 of those that are only found in the pig and nowhere else. At least in the 14, actually now 25 different food sources that we've looked at as of today.
And it's because it's very similar.
Well, we don't know why.
Right.
The tissues have more epitope level similarity than could be just predicted by genetic similarity.
But this study that you've done will now help further studies. So is that on the agenda, not necessarily from you, but in the future for other studies to happen to take a closer look at the pig perhaps, or other factors that may cause an autoimmune disorder?
Absolutely. So the first thing we're doing is we're extending the database. So right now we're up to about 25 animals.
Okay.
Additionally, we are trying to communicate with other researchers and share the epitope level data on the published GF index. And where this could lead is hopefully much better, more integrated dietary recommendations for autoimmune sufferers.
And that's the bottom goal, or I guess I should say the main goal is to get people to avoid having an autoimmune disorder, because as you say, it attacks. Your body's attacking itself at that point.
Correct. There's been many books written about this, and we hope that we bring like added value, because of a systematic analysis of this problem, and it's an immune problem, so use immunology to understand this problem. And so actually our first paper got published this month. It's Journal of Autoimmune, of Translational Immunity. It's available online, open access. If you just Google Immunodiatica, we're the first and only result on Google, and so you'll find our finalized first paper.
And that's where you can find all of the information that more than we've just discussed today, in more detail. We can find out more from the Immunodiatica. I'm sorry, I can't really say that word.
Immunodiatica.
Thank you. Yes, so more people can find it that way. Well, thank you very much for sharing this study. It's very interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
The St. Mary of Carmen Society is gearing up for their annual scholarship banquet. This year, they anticipate handing out $9,000 in scholarship to deserving students on October 19th. Banquet tickets are on sale now, and funds raised will support future scholarships. Tickets and more information are available by calling 781-983-9031. Get ready for the 14th annual Bill's Pizzeria 5K Road Race. The race benefits the Travis Roy Foundation to make a difference for those with spinal cord injuries. It's happening on Sunday, October 27th, and starts at 9 a.m. at Mason Rice School in Newton Center. There is also a free kids' energy spooky sprint at 8:30. And of course, don't forget to wear your costume. More information about Bill's Pizzeria 5K Road Race is available online at bills5k.com. That's it for this week's Newton News. I'm Matthew Ferris. If you missed any of this week's newscast, you can watch it online at newtv.org. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Newton News was brought to you in part by The Village Bank. Your village, your bank.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.